Since pushing Florida State to the hilt in a 6-point game, Oklahoma State has ripped off 3 consecutive wins, including the opener in the Big 12 on the road. Mark Rogers TV bringing in Robert Whetsell of Cowboys Ride for Free to talk about the Cowboys, of course, and a date with Iowa State coming to town. How are you, Robert?
Doing great, Mark. As always, it's a pleasure.
It definitely is. So we appreciate the time. We'd like to talk about your quarterback situation because, hey, unless this offense is fooling me, it seems like you can plug anybody in this spot. No disrespect to Daxx Garman. He's done a nice job. It seems like completing 56% of his passes, but they count when he completes them. He's playing very well in place of JW Walsh.
Well, yeah, the dynamic of the offense definitely changed, and I think, a lot of fans look at this as, they harken back to the days of Brandon Weeden, and the ball's flying all over the field, and fans really look for the ball to go downfield a little bit in this offense. And JW Walsh was struggling. I mean, if you go back and look at the numbers from Florida State, I think he only threw the ball downfield, where the ball traveled more than, I think, 15 yards once or twice. Now, one of those, granted, was a touchdown to a wide open player that was on a kind of a misdirection, kind of a decoy play. But there wasn't much going on, people felt like, with Walsh at the helm in the passing game. If Walsh doesn't get injured against Missouri State, then I think he's most definitely still starting. But his injury, paved the way for Daxx Garman, who, a little bit like Weeden, had not started a game for, I think it was either 4 or 5 years. I think his junior year in high school was the last time he played in a live football game, when he came into the game against Missouri State early in the first quarter after Walsh's injury. And I have to say that based on that, I would say generally the fan base couldn't be happier with kind of what's gone on. Obviously, there's some things that we'd like to see him do better, but good Lord, the guy's averaging 19 yards per completion. Throws a good ball. He's got a strong arm. Seems to be the offense a little bit as far as going through his progressions. Gundy has finally praised him, which it took a couple games for that to happen. Praised him for his ability to kind of make the right reads and the right calls, which is, a big thing to them, that when they're getting to the line of scrimmage, he's making good decisions as far as what play they should run based on what the defense is doing. But, God, the guy throws just a beautiful, beautiful deep ball. The decisions he's made as to where he's going to throw it have been fantastic. Some OSU fans would disagree, but if you go back and anybody goes back and watches the tape, he has rarely thrown the ball in a position where the defender had a shot at intercepting the ball. Has he thrown it into traffic? Yes, but he's thrown it into traffic where his guy is going to catch it. He's had an interception where he overthrew, the cardinal sin is to throw high over the middle, and he overthrew a receiver over the middle, and of course safety stepped up and intercepted. But his deep throws, which have been incredible, to the outside, sure. He's only thrown into double coverage once. That was against Texas Tech, and the OSU receiver made the play for the touchdown. So he's, I would say, do we want to see better short and intermediate passing? Do we want to see him, read into some of those shorter throws? Absolutely. But I would say at this point, Oklahoma State's had to be pretty pleased with what he's done given the injury situation with Walsh.
Desmond Roland was the known factor on this offense coming into 2014. How do you feel about the supporting cast through these 4 games?
Well, the biggest handicap Oklahoma State's got on the offensive side of the ball right now is the offensive line. They're definitely not moving people out, and we knew that going into the season. They're young, they're inexperienced, and that's one of those places where you just can't have that. You're probably not going to have a lot of success. There's going to be some growing pains, and so that's been the case. they've protected okay in the passing game. Garman, you know, another thing about Garman is he's been very tough. He's taken some hits, you know, in the passing game, but you know they're giving him enough time on enough occasions for him to do some damage. As far as the weapons, prior to the Walsh's injury, I think you'd be hard pressed to pick somebody out. Now that Garman is at the helm, I think the wide receivers as a group have definitely stepped up and shown their ability. You have, I believe, they're the top 5, top 7. Just this, and now I'm blanking out. My apologies. I believe the top 7 receivers, 5 of those receivers, top 6. Top 6 receivers, 4 of those receivers are averaging 20 or more yards per catch, and only 1 of those receivers out of the top 6 has fewer than 7 catches. The guy who's got fewer than 7 catches has 5. He's a true freshman, and on 5 catches he has 3 touchdowns. So this group is extremely talented. Jawan Seals, who was supposed to be, as we'd say back home, he was kind of supposed to be the bell cow of the wide receiver group. He's barely made a whisper. Marcel Aitman, who's 6'4", 210, leads the team in yards. Tyreek Hill, my favorite speedster, leads the team in receptions. James Washington, who's a true freshman, leads the wide receivers in touchdowns. This group, and you've got a couple of guys, Brandon Shepard, Jawan Seals, who very quietly are, you know, averaging like 21, 22 yards a catch. So this group, now that you have a quarterback at the helm who can send that ball downfield and send it down there accurately, you know, this group is really starting to shine. So I think it could be the next 2 to 3 weeks could really be fun.
Okay, Robert, you said that name, Tyreek Hill. So I'm just going to kick back here, and you can have at it with Tyreek Hill because I know you love to talk about the kid.
So the fans have been very frustrated. Offensive coordinator Mike Yurcich is taking some heat from the fans. You know, I'll include me in that bunch. You know, you feel like they're kind of keeping the playbook under wraps a little bit. Could be because they're trying to keep it simple for Garman, obviously. But Tyreek Hill running a post pattern is not rocket science. And Yurcich, the offensive coordinator, actually said after this last game that he has challenged Garman and said, I don't think you can overthrow this kid. And so, of course, the only time they've done it all year, against Texas Tech, line Hill up in the slot, and he takes off. The first guy in coverage doesn't press him, kind of get up in his grill and slow him down. The safety tries to get in his way, but Hill just sidesteps him. And, I mean, I've watched the replay I don't know how many times. You're talking about a kid who's got track speed, who is running in full football gear. So when we did the math and we timed it kind of, you know, roughly amateur timing it a little bit, he was running the equivalent of a sub 4.4 40-yard dash in his full football gear, and he's trying to avoid a guy. And he covered ground. When he caught the ball at about the 4-yard line, the quarterback threw the ball at I think just the other side of the 50. So he caught the ball. He was moving almost 20 miles an hour. I think it was like 19.1 miles an hour when we kind of did the math. So moving so fast that he had to run through the back of the end zone. He kind of hopped to avoid a guy, and he goes up the tunnel. So, I mean, this looked like a guy who was running the 100 meters at the Olympics, how in some of these small stadiums, when they get done through the line, they like run out and up a tunnel. The speed involved is just ridiculous. And they have that really, there was maybe 1 or 2 plays against Florida State. I think it was a punt return and a pass over the middle that he caught. And against Texas Tech, It was really this deep throw. And we're really starting to wonder, are they having trouble figuring out how to get this guy the ball in space? They get him the ball on jet sweeps, but the way they work the jet sweep is it ends up being almost like a wide zone read. So the offensive line is going that way, so all the defenders are going that way. So there's no misdirection, to get him out into an area where not a lot of guys are there. People are obviously aware of him because OSU scored a long TD against Florida State where, they faked it like they were going to throw that little wide swing pass to Hill. Everybody bit, and we threw it over the top to David Glidden, who basically walked into the end zone 55 yards later. So the kid is so exciting that we're just chomping at the bit, and we're crossing our fingers that it's just a matter of they're having a hard time. They're trying to hold back with the playbook right now and maybe not show their hand. It's like, come on, show your hand. You're going to use the kid. Make other teams be afraid of that weapon when they come into the game. But yeah, he's an exciting player to watch.
And what I like to hear in all that is that he hung on to the football, caught the ball. We've seen some speedsters come into college football in the NFL, and they hit the dropsy. So catching the football as well is also key in all that. Talking about the defense here, I don't know that this is alarming because Texas Tech, just the way they run the offense, they're going to pile up yardage on people. You generally had a 2-score lead in most of that game in the second half, but Texas Tech hits you up for 512 yards of total offense. Maybe more importantly than that are the injuries sustained on defense for Oklahoma State going forward. And I see a note here where Oklahoma State led the Big 12 in scoring defense last year at just about 3 touchdowns or 21 points per game. You're at around 27, which doesn't seem like a big difference, but considering the tough teams are still to come, do you have any concerns about the defensive effort?
Well, no concerns about the effort at all. Defensive coordinator Glenn Spencer is just a gem. The dude is fantastic. He's got the kids buying in. The culture he creates around that side of the ball is incredible. It's really incredible, and you can see it anytime you listen to kids talk. You hear Spencer, oozing out of their pores. The trouble with the defense, and we've talked about this, is they lost so many starters. The back 7, there have been times in each of the first 4 games where you've had between 5 and 7 or 5, 6 and 8 freshmen on the field at one time in the back 7 of this defense. And I would say I would go back, number one, against Florida State. I thought they played pretty admirably. They gave up a few big plays, no huge touchdowns. They didn't give up like a 60 or 70-yard touchdown. But they played tough. They stayed in the game. They didn't get down against Texas Tech. And I thought Gundy said it very well. Say what you want about Tech. They have a system on offense, and they have the players that work well in that system. Grant, Marquez, there are a couple other players. Washington really fit that system well. People who they've really worked hard at devising that system to get these little quick guys the ball in space, and they run tough. So you're not going to slop it around against them. They're going to put some numbers on the board offensively against you. The key to that game is in the first half, Oklahoma State sustained a couple of not major injuries, but enough that it took a player out of the game. They're starting their cornerback, Ashton Lampkin, who starts opposite Kevin Peterson. And Larry Stevens or Jordan, one of those guys, the safeties, who are actually upperclassmen now, and so they're more mature, even though they don't have a lot of experience. One of them got dinged up, and so you're trotting true freshmen out there. And while Texas Tech immediately picked on Ramon Richards at the opposite quarterback position, he, within a few series, guy made one of the more athletic interception plays I can ever remember seeing. Texas Tech, while they had their way a lot in the first half, in the second half it was a completely different story. If you go back and look at the numbers. So defensively, as we've felt all season, they're going to sort of live and die with the young guys, and you're going to have some whiffs, and you're going to get some good plays. They're very athletic. They've recruited so well on that side of the ball. They're extremely athletic. So they've got a couple of more games. You've got Iowa State coming. You've got Kansas. You know, couple more games for these guys to get experience and you know, get comfortable with Big 12 play before just a brutal stretch of the last 6 games is coming. It's just going to be brutal.
Okay, Robert, we only bring you on for the big games, so Iowa State coming up. That said, the Cyclones, we like to pick on the Cyclones, but they beat Iowa, which, how do you beat a Big Ten team? That was amazing that they were able to pull.
Incredible game, incredible.
Incredible game, incredible effort there. Last-second field goal, they win it. Yeah, we won't go into that. Kirk Ferentz calling a timeout when they missed the field goal, but
boy,
the one that counted. And they also took Kansas State. They've been a bad football program, but if they play well, it's at home, which does make a whole lot of sense. But they took Kansas State down to the wire, almost won that game. I saw the fourth quarter of that game. So what do you have on Iowa State? I see that they can't throw the football or run the football, but besides that, yeah.
Well, honest to goodness, if you they've got a pretty good freshman wide receiver. I believe his name is Lazard. Big kid. Kid's got some talent. You've got the quarterback Sam Richardson. They don't have running backs necessarily running the ball, but Richardson leads them in rushing, averaging, you know, over 50 yards a game. With a young secondary, you know, I think there's potential there for Iowa State. You know, with that, Lazard is the real deal. Kid's really good. I would say this: the challenge for Iowa State, with football at least, is it's just really difficult to recruit the level of talent you need to really make a difference. Paul Rhodes is a good coach. He's those kids, you know, he's got those kids playing about as hard as he can play. They're usually fairly well coached, but you know, Richardson made a horrible play against Baylor. I watched some of the Baylor-Iowa State game, and I mean, he threw one of those passes that, you know, will end up on the blooper video at some point. But look, Oklahoma State was one game away from playing in a national championship in 2011, and went to Iowa State, and they got it up and they took it to them. You know, the Cyclones did. So you've got to be paying attention to any of these teams. You know, I would even say well, maybe not Kansas. That would be stretching it. But Iowa State, you know, the coach is enthusiastic enough, the kids buy in enough that, you know, college football, all you need is the right kind of emotion, kind of at the right time, against the right opponent at the right time, and anything could happen. So Oklahoma State needs to pay attention, but I think they ought to be able to get after them. I think they'll get after them on Saturday. I've been predicting like a 50-ish to like 21-ish type of a score. I would think they would beat them worse than they beat Texas Tech. Honest to goodness. If they don't, there's going to be some chatter.
Yeah, I kid about Iowa State, but again, if you look down through the annals, when they have these 2- and 3-win football teams, they usually catch somebody at home. This game's on the road for them, but they usually catch somebody at home, like they almost caught Kansas State a few weeks ago. They played really well, took Kansas State right down to the wire, and again, Iowa's going to be a team that's going to go to a bowl game, going to win 7 or 8 football games. So, yeah, you can't look past anybody. Robert, we appreciate the time. We got Robert Whetsell of Cowboys Ride for Free, and we always lean on Robert for Oklahoma State football, and with some bigger games coming on down the line, we will lean on you some more. Count on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Anytime you give me a chance to talk about Tyreek Hill, I'll be happy to come on.
Yes, we'll just have to do a Tyreek Hill segment in and of itself next time.
There we go. Thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate it.